Hi, Michael. My name is Ellen, and I'll be correcting this essay for you today. I apologize for the delay. I've been really rather sick this past week, so I was unable to correct anything. But let's get straight to it. I know you're impatient for your correction, so let's go straight away. Okay. Guess we begin here, right? Okay. So the role at school, you wrote possess. It should be possesses, but that's the correct tense. I still don't think this is the right word. You don't possess a role. So this is a matter of collocation. You can say that the school has a role or the school plays a role, but you don't possess a role. Okay, and this is a matter of vocabulary. They're called collocations. There are certain words that just go together, and there are other words that just don't go together. So let's try that again. The role that school plays in modern society is highly disputable. For a number of people, the educational system should provide more entertainment, whereas for others, it's utter activity, again, wrong word, is the provision of educational services. In this essay, it will be argued why the educational factors are of higher value. Okay. So what I'm seeing here is I'm seeing an attempt to uh, use your own language and to use your own vocabulary and words that are different from what's in the task, and that's great, that's commendable, but some of these words are unnatural. So we already talked about possess, we talked about utter, which is incorrect, and I also don't think factors is the right word. It's not the educational factors. It's the idea of merely educating, merely providing knowledge, or whether they should have more entertainment involved. Okay, so factors for me wasn't the right word. Let's see. Okay, why don't we move on so we don't spend too much time in your introduction. Firstly, it is a well-known fact that learning is a much more effective process if the new data are added to already existing background knowledge, especially when the links are presented in a in a hasty way. Okay, so you've got a couple mistakes here. It is far more convenient for pupils to memorize and afterwards recall the necessary information. Only when only when the new knowledge is linked with an emotional state can it be easily maintained in the long-term memory. So what you've done here is you've used a sentence that's supposed to have inversion, and it's supposed to have inversion in that main clause, not in the initial clause. Okay? So only when the new knowledge is linked with an emotional state can it be easily maintained in the long-term memory. That's the way this is supposed to go. Now, this is an advanced piece of grammar. So, the folks at IELTS are going to appreciate your attempt to do this, but not be so strict, about that kind of mistake. But you do want to be careful with some of those kind of simple grammatical mistakes, okay? So yeah, those are not so easily forgiven. But definitely review the rules regarding inversion. That's what this is called. Okay, so for example, in many schools in Denmark, Lego bricks are frequently used to present a complex theme and through play, deconstruct the abstract notion into much more affordable pieces. That's the wrong word here, affordable. The colorful bricks are just a way to maintain pupils' interest. Now here, you needed an apostrophe after the S because you're talking about the interest of many pupils, plural, okay? So it should be S apostrophe. Now, I have to be honest with you. Other than those grammatical and lexical things that we talked about, I'm having a hard time understanding what this paragraph is about. What's your main theme here? What's the central idea of this paragraph? It sounds to me, because of this whole thing with the Legos that you introduced at the bottom of the paragraph, that you're talking about play and how play or learning through play is effective and important. You say that they're used to present a complex theme. They deconstruct abstract notions. Okay. So that kind of supports this idea, but none of any of this part of the paragraph really made it clear to me that that's what this paragraph is about. Okay. It was really unclear to me that that's what you were trying to do here. So there are a few things you really need to change. You need to make the central idea of your paragraph clear from that very first sentence. The first sentence is typically called a topic sentence, okay, where you begin your paragraph essentially telling us what that central idea is. That, for me, was missing here, and it would have really clarified what this paragraph was about. It could have been something as simple as, in school, the role of play for educational purposes is often undervalued. Okay, you could have said something like that, and then the rest of this would have made more sense. I still have some concerns about the way this was developed. Like, I felt like you weren't getting to your point quickly enough. Okay, but if you had had a topic sentence like what I just said, or something similar to that, simply saying that there is some value in adding play in school. Having something like that would have really helped make it clear, and I would have been like, oh, okay, so this is going to talk about why this whole educational thing is important. Now, there was another problem with this. We're going to talk about it later. I don't want to talk about it right now, okay? But let's keep going for now. On the other hand, it should not be forgotten that school is not only about fun and provision of entertaining subjects. The educational system has a responsibility to form well-rounded citizens that will be eager to engage in civil society. Therefore, educating through providing activities that support acquisition of social norms, okay, is of highest value. A recent survey from Harvard University has shown that more than 80% of students who received a broad humanistic curriculum are eager to actively participate in debates at their workplaces. All right, I don't understand that. I mean, grammatically, you could see I didn't correct anything. It was fine, but I'm a little confused. I want to talk about it. Let's get to your conclusion first, and then we'll get a little more in depth. To conclude, entertainment often facilitates the acquisition of required social skills. However, I don't understand that. However, maybe you mean this. I'm not sure what's going on in this sentence. However, no, I don't know. Means? Oh, you means like methods, perhaps? No, you can't use means like this. Why don't we get rid of the word means? However, how the wisdom and the skills are passed, there we go, get rid of means. However, how the wisdom and the skills are passed to the next generation of pupils is currently prevailing teaching styles. S, I strongly believe that schools, apostrophe S, main goal is still to educate. Okay. So we got through that. We corrected some of it, and it's fine. Now, I want to talk to you about these body paragraphs here. Let's see something. Now, okay, let me see. Let me see this for a second. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about was this direct question here. So you've got this direct question. They want to know which you agree with. Okay. So when somebody asks you which viewpoint do you agree with, you have a couple of different options. Okay. You can clearly agree with one or the other exclusively. You can say that you agree with both, or you can say that you agree with one, but then you can also explain why you don't agree with the other. So those are some of the choices that you have. And those are the choices, of course, that you had here. So let's talk about what you did instead. You said it will be argued why the educational factors are of higher value. So when I read that, I thought in my head, I was like, oh, okay, so this essay is going to focus only on why we need to focus on this academic only kind of school system. But that's not what you did. Then you had this paragraph here, which for me felt like it came out of nowhere because there was nothing in your introduction that made me think that you were going to have a paragraph about this. What that means is that if you wanted to include this paragraph about why entertainment in schools is important, you needed to introduce it better in your introduction. And we'll talk about ways you could do that, okay? Like I said, there were ways you could do it, but this was not an effective way. Then, what is the essay really talking about here? Their sole purpose is to educate. So it's these two ends of a continuum. So we're talking about more entertainment, having this really kind of fun classroom, or when we talk about educating, we mean the idea here is this like academic kind of education. You decided not to talk about that, and I looked through your ideas, and it looks like you had some good ideas here. Like I think this one here, this number 2, I think this was actually a very good thing that you could have talked about, and I think it would have been more effective. This whole thing about creating a well-rounded future citizen, I didn't feel like that really made sense in this essay. Okay. Like, what does this mean? This is very vague. Look at this. Educating through providing activities that support acquisition of social norms is of highest value. Oh, really? What? Like, what do you mean? You talk about a humanistic curriculum, but you never go into any details about that. So I felt like this paragraph was weakened because of that. You probably should have talked about the other idea you had about these serious academic subjects and how there's really no room for entertainment in them. You need to have, a more academic approach. So this is something else I think you should have done. Okay. So now let's go back to your introduction. I told you that there are ways to do it. Is this it? Yeah, here it is. So for a number of people, the educational system should provide more entertainment, whereas for others, its ultimate activity, you could have maybe said ultimate, is the provision of educational services. In this essay, it will be argued why entertainment has a role in education, but ultimately, academic knowledge is the sole purpose of our educational system. That would have made sense, okay? Where you essentially say, yes, we need some entertainment. However, this is more important. Okay? So that's something I want you to get into the habit of doing. Your sentence here, we call this a thesis statement. Your thesis statement really needs to mirror what your paragraphs talk about. Okay? And that didn't happen here. So what ultimately happens is it's a problem of coherence and cohesion because these ideas don't really fit together. They don't kind of glue into each other appropriately. Okay? All right, so we spent quite a bit of time on this first essay. I really want to go on to the second one about doing an enjoyable activity. Okay, you've got a lot of notes here. Let's see. Being a parent in modern times is a challenging task, especially when previously undoubted, okay, when a previously undoubted paradigm becomes argued. That's a strange word, becomes argued. How about is disputed? When a previously undoubted paradigm is disputed. I think that would have been a better word. Recently it has been questioned that reading from a children's developmental perspective is less beneficial than provision of entertaining activities. Okay. In this essay, arguments explaining why this viewpoint is flawed will be presented. Okay, so when I read this, I'm thinking that you're saying that reading is the best way to develop skills and creativity. Okay, that's what I understood from this introduction. So that's what I expect to read. Let's see what you actually did in your paragraphs. Okay, to begin, okay, to begin with, parental reading at bedtime has a positive effect on a child's mental development. This is because reading is a mindfulness activity. All right, that's the wrong word. I think you mean a mindful. You can't really use mindfulness as an adjective like this here. And no comma. It's a mindful activity that helps the little listener to calm down after a day filled, get rid of the up, with thrilling activities. A recent research, okay, we don't say a recent research, we say a recent study or recent research, because research is uncountable, so you don't put an A in front of it. So, recent research by the British Ministry of Health has shown that children that were told stories at bedtime were 55% better at self-regulating than those who could choose their bedtime activity. Therefore, should evening reading be a part of the routine that Therefore, evening reading should be a part of the routine that enables the young one to find a proper balance before falling asleep. So what's the skill children are gaining here? Self-regulation? Okay, fine. Let's see what else you said. Now, we don't say on the other side, we say on the other hand. And there is a rule about this, which I didn't talk about in the previous essay. When you say on the other hand, it implies that in the previous paragraph you have said on the one hand. These two go together. It's on the one hand and on the other hand. You can't use one without the other. So, on the other hand, advocates of a different approach claim that the beneficial effect of reading is stereotyped and parents should take into consideration recent discoveries on child development. That's what we call this. This is due to the fact that children have a genuine tendency to be playful, interactive, and seeking company. Okay, they have a genuine tendency to be playful, interactive, and seek company, not seeking. Staying attuned to this natural form of expression conveys to the young one a message of complete support and acceptance, A-N-C-E here. We've got two nouns, support and acceptance. For instance, in a recent paper, no comma, published by the Journal of Contemporary Parenting, it was stated, no comma, that reading has little to no influence on child development. This article led to a nationwide debate regarding the purpose of parental activities. Okay, so here I feel like you have misunderstood what is expected of you in this paragraph. And I also see that you have left out one of the important elements of this task. Let me read your conclusion and we'll talk about it a little more, okay? So, to conclude, as the myth of bedtime reading has been contested, it became argued how parents should foster children's development. Nonetheless, it is my firm standpoint that there is no better way to form bonds with a child than to share a thrill of a bedtime story. I don't love some of this language here. This share a thrill of a bedtime story feels very unnatural. Maybe there's no better way to form bonds with a child than to share the pleasure of a bedtime story or to enjoy reading a bedtime story. That would have been more natural language. Okay, so let's go back. Here we go. Nope, that's not it. Wait. Here it is. Doing an enjoyable activity with a child can develop better skills and more creativity than reading. So this is the main idea that we're focusing on. All right, this idea of enjoyable activities. And the enjoyable activities are being compared to reading. Okay? Then we have skills and we have creativity. So what are you supposed to be talking about here in this essay? You're supposed to be talking about an enjoyable activity that is done with a child. That's what you're supposed to be focusing on. And then you have to talk about skills that it develops, creativity that it develops, and you're supposed to compare it to reading. So there are a handful of ways to do this, okay? And we can go through some of them, although I don't think that's particularly helpful. You focused on reading because you said you disagree, and that's fine. But you did not really talk about enjoyable activities at all. And you definitely didn't talk about creativity, okay? So this would clearly affect your task achievement score, all right? I would have been okay with this paragraph if you had talked about the enjoyable activity. There needed to be some sort of comparison, okay? And you can tell that there needs to be some sort of comparison. Look at this language. Doing this is better than this, okay? So if you want to tell me, no, it's not better than this, that's how you have to do it in your essay, okay? You have to say that, let's see, here we are, right? Yeah. It's not parental reading has a positive effect. You want to say something more like, it is believed by some that doing an enjoyable activity helps children gain certain skills such as ABC. However, it has been proven that reading is far better at developing ABC skill. So you were talking about self-regulation. Okay, yeah, self-regulation. And then you can talk about why it's better than this activity. Okay, so that's how you want to do it. Then you could have spent the next paragraph talking about, again, the activity, the fun activity, and but in terms of creativity, because again, look at the topic. It absolutely wants you to talk about, look at this, skills and creativity. The fact that they separated creativity from the rest of the skills shows you that they really want you to spend a considerable portion of the essay talking about it. Otherwise, they would have just lumped it in with skills and not have emphasized it separately. Okay? So, like I said, there are a handful of ways to do this. But since you were very pro reading, again, you could have said, yeah, it's widely believed that doing an enjoyable activity such as drawing with a child can develop creativity and allow children to create sort of imaginary worlds and animals and vehicles. But quite honestly, reading does a much better job of this because they also develop language skills. They imagine the things in their head, and then I don't know, you could say any number of things. But that's kind of the way you're supposed to do this. Okay. So I felt like your second paragraph was definitely off, but you were missing a lot of the elements that you needed here. Okay. So it's a lot of information for your first set. We talked about some vocabulary issues, some grammar issues, but I really also want you to focus on this issue, these elements of task achievement and coherence and cohesion we talked about, okay? So for your first set, I know it can be kind of overwhelming. There's a lot of information, and I apologize for that. But I want you to have all this information and, to arm you for the following sets of essays, okay? So go ahead, get those started, make corrections to this set, and I'll be waiting for that next set of essays. Good luck.